Hi, welcome to the Amy Noel on Dyslexia YouTube channel. This is a channel for parents and educators of kids with dyslexia, and today I'm going to make a really quick video on how to use Dr. Kilpatrick's Equipped for Reading Success. This book helps kids develop phonological and eventually phonemic awareness. Now remember, a precursor to phonological awareness is auditory processing. I'll put some links in the description for resources for auditory processing. The first thing you need to do is give your student the P.A.S.T test that's available in the appendix of the book. P.A.S.T stands for Phonological Awareness Screening Test. There's 4 different forms of it in the appendix. Once you've screened your student and you know what level they're at, then you go ahead and start them at that level and continue through in order with the exception of level E. Then Dr. Kilpatrick states, do not expect students to master all of level E before moving on to levels F and G. When a student has mastered level E2, go on to level F and do levels E3, E4, and E5 alongside levels F and G. You're going to want to do these 1-minute exercises a few times a week with your student. These exercises are so quick that you can just do them right before you do other activities in reading. Whatever level you're on, there's instructions at the top of the page. There are 2 variations of how you can instruct the child on the activity. It's important to follow one of these 2 scripts so that it's always consistent and it makes sense to the child. Another thing you need to know when you're doing these exercises is to pronounce the syllables as you would say them when you're speaking and not as they're written in isolation. You're going to give the child time to respond and work it out in their head. And eventually you want to work up to automaticity for each level where they're responding within 2 seconds. If the student is struggling at hearing the separate syllables, you can have them clap the syllables or put their hand underneath their chin and say the word like that. So they can just do one hand, or they could do 2 hands like this and put their elbows on the table. Elephant, elephant. If they continue to struggle separating syllables or phonemes in later levels, you can use manipulatives. You can use things like letter tiles, colored chips, or post-it notes. I'm going to show you some examples here. With the post-it notes, you could start out with letters. Ideally, there would be different colored post-it notes for the different syllables. You say morsel, now don't say more, and you just take it away and the child says so. And then when you're using blank ones, same thing. Say morsel, don't say more. You take it away and they say so. You don't even have to take it away, you can just cover it up. If you have these colored chips, you can use an expo marker to write the graphemes onto the coins. This is an example from level J. Say batter instead of say I. You could write the I on there, and then they would say bitter. And then you can do it without the graphemes written on it. I got some of these tips from a YouTube channel called Intentional Literacy. She has a technique for spelling called Tap It, Map It, Graph It. She made a playlist of tips for level D for Equipped for Reading Success, so I will definitely put that in the description. And then here's an example with tiles. I only have 2 blank tiles, but for the word grain, I would spell it out. I would say grain. Now instead of go, say duh, and my son could easily move those, and then C for himself, drain. And if I had more blank tiles, I would use those, but since I don't, we use these. I'll give you an example of when the graphemes change. Whenever the graphemes change, I let my son know that's not how we actually spell it, but this is not a spelling lesson. For example, say praise, and he says praise, and then instead of say t, so he would change this, and then he sounds out trays. But I do just quickly show him, this is how we spell trays. And I can even remind him that silent E was on praise to show that it's not plural. Another thing you can do is have them use their fingers as the manipulatives. So for the word trite, I would have him point to all the phonemes on his fingers. T, I, t. Now instead of t, say f, and he'll say f, I, t. The last tip or instruction that I have for you is to be sure to use the reviews suggested in the book and more of your own reviews as you go along. And then keep going until your child has mastered every level with fluency.